A very warm welcome to today's session. I'm Dr. Meenu Sharma and I teach in English department of Smile National Mahila PG College, MEERUT. Today we'll together going to explore the fascinating world of drama and its elements. Drama, as you know, it's not just literature that is meant to be read quietly. In fact, it is an art form that is created to be performed. Drama actually include those stories that crafted for the stage. These stories are designed to come alive through action, dialogue, and spectacle. In our previous session, we traced the roots of drama, its origin, and how it evolved as a powerful art form. Today, we shift our focus to the elements that make a drama come alive. You can think of these elements as the building blocks of a play, or maybe the ingredients that together create the magic of performance. These elements will be covered in two parts. In the first lecture, we are going to explore the literary elements, or you can say the blueprint of a drama. And in the second, we are going to move to the technical and performance elements, which include that stagecraft and the human artistry like acting and many other things. And these elements together bring these words, literary elements to life. So let's begin. This particular lecture will focus on the literary elements. Literary elements are basically the elements that are written into the scripts. These elements are largely based on Aristotle's writing. So let's take a quick look. First, there is plot, the storyline, then the characters, people who drive the story forward. Next, we have dialogue. Then we have the theme and conflict. Basically, the big ideas and the tension that give drama its depth. Next is music, which plays a very important role. Then come the spectacle, the visual impact, and finally, setting, the time and place that frame the whole story. Although Aristotle didn't list settings separately, but you can see that modern theatre studies often treat setting as a distinct element. And the reason is its powerful role in shaping mood and the meaning of any drama. So before we dive into the details, let's pause and ask, what do we really mean when we talk about the literary elements of drama? You can think of them as the blueprint of a play, basically the ideas and the structure that exist on paper before the actor, costume or lighting ever enter the picture. In simple terms, they are the ingredients a playwright mixes together to cook up a story so that it can be performed on stage. Without these elements, drama would just be a series of random action, and it definitely wouldn't have any shape, meaning or emotional impact. To understand literary elements, let's rewind to history. Around the 4th century BCE, Aristotle wrote his famous treatise Poetics. And in this treatise, he identifies 6 key elements of drama: plot, character, thought, which we now call theme, diction, dialogue, spectacle, and song. Aristotle was essentially the world's first drama critic who actually gave us a recipe for how plays should work. In fact, his ideas shaped the Western theatre for centuries and influenced playwrights from Greek, Roman, and even Shakespeare. Meanwhile, in India, we had an equally profound text, and that is Natya Shastra by Bharat Muni. This work was composed between 200 BCE and 200 CE. And unlike Aristotle's concise work, Natya Shastra is a kind of encyclopedia. It has 36 chapters which are going to cover almost every aspect of performance, whether acting techniques or stage design. In fact, it introduced the concept of rasa, the emotional flavor that audience experience in form of joy, sorrow, anger, or maybe wonder. And this idea of evoking rasa became so central to Indian aesthetic, and in fact, because it blended drama with the music, dance, and even spirituality. So we can understand that across cultures, scholars and artists were already asking the same question. And the question was, what makes drama work? Now let's understand why does all these elements matter for us today. So these are literary elements, and these are the backbone of drama actually. They provide structure through plot and setting. They create human connection through the characters and dialogue. And in fact, they also convey the ideas and value through theme and conflict. And finally, we received this aesthetic vision through spectacle. In short, it can be understood as a playwright's toolkit, or the creative foundation that transforms stories into a performing art and give us such experience that stay along even after the curtain falls. So as we move into each literary elements, remember these are the building blocks that make drama timeless and powerful. Now let's begin with the first and most fundamental literary elements of drama, and that is the plot. Aristotle famously called plot the soul of tragedy. Why? Because without a structured sequence of event, drama simply cannot exist. In drama, plot is basically the carefully arranged sequence of event that shows not just what happens, but also how and why things happen. So it basically creates that cause and effect connection between action and their outcomes, and actually it guides the audience throughout the story. You can think of Oedipus Rex. How every step Oedipus takes to escape his fate ironically pushes him closer to it. Or you can see Hamlet, for instance. The entire plot revolves around the themes of revenge, hesitation, and moral struggle, which ultimately lead to that tragedy. In comedy too, plot actually drives the laughter. Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream you can take for example, because this play you see thrives on mistaken identities and magical intervention. All events are carefully arranged to build that confusion and then resolve it ultimately. Now, how do we understand the shape of a plot? And one of the clearest model is Freytag's pyramid. Freytag was 19th century German critic. He gave us this diagram to show how tension rises to a peak, the climax, and then falls towards a resolution. But here one thing is important to remember, that Freytag wasn't inventing something new. He was actually building on ideas from Aristotle's Poetics, which emphasized plot as the heart of drama, and on the other side Horace Ars Poetica, which actually stressed balance and unity in a plot. Now let's apply Freytag's pyramid to Macbeth, Shakespeare's great tragedy. This example helps us to visualize the rise and fall of dramatic tension, and it definitely strengthens our understanding. So the play starts with an exposition you can see on the screen. Exposition is the introduction of character, setting and background. In Macbeth, you see that the play opens with the witch's prophecy and introduces Macbeth as a brave warrior. We also meet King Duncan, Banquo, and Lady Macbeth. If we talk about the setting is Scotland and in the time of war. All these things altogether establish the background and hints at ambition and fate as the central theme. Next point is rising action, which means the development of conflict and tension. Similarly, we see as story moves on, Macbeth struggles with the witch's prophecy and his own ambition. Also, Lady Macbeth persuades him to murder Duncan, and this tension built as Macbeth kills the king and takes the throne and ultimately begins to fear exposure. Following this, you can see we have climax, the turning point, the most intense movement. This turning point come when Macbeth orders the murder of Banquo and Banquo's son Fleance, and also Banquo's ghost start to haunt Macbeth at the banquet. This marks the peak of his paranoia and the irreversible descent into tyranny. Next point we have falling action, and in falling action we basically see the consequences of the climax unfold. We see similarly in Macbeth that how Macbeth's reign unravels, he becomes increasingly ruthless and start to order more murders including Macduff's family. On the other side, Lady Macbeth descended into madness and opposition against Macbeth grew very strong. Finally, we have the resolution. Resolution is basically stands for that conclusion where conflicts are resolved or may be left open for any reflection. In the final act of Macbeth, we see that how Macbeth faces Macduff in battle, and despite his confidence in the witch's prophecy, he is defeated and killed. Ultimately, Malcolm becomes a king and restore order to Scotland. So this is the whole story. On the other hand, in Sanskrit drama as described by Bharat in Natyashas, plot often follow a 5-act structure, which starts from Mukha, beginning to Nirvahan, the resolution, and always aiming to evoke rasa, the emotional flavor. So as we can see, plot is the backbone of drama. Why? Because it gives shape, direction, and meaning to the whole performance. Without plot, whether they are character and dialogue, everything would float without any purpose. In fact, a well-structured plot not only organize event, but it also guide the audience emotion. Because plot is that what transform a simple story into a powerful dramatic experience, which ensure that every moment on stage contributes to the larger impact. Now that we have explored plot, let's move to the next essential element, and that is character. If plot gives drama its structure, then character give it life. Characters are basically the flesh and blood of the story, as because these are the ones who think, feel, act, and change. Without character, drama would be a hollow shell, and it's through them that we connect, reflect, and feel. There are many types of character, and we have categorized them into 3 main categories. Let's start with how characters function in the story. So we have these types as you can see on the screen. The first one is protagonist. This is our central figure, the one whose choices drive the whole narrative. You can think of Hamlet, whose internal conflict shapes the entire play. On the opposite side, we have antagonist, the opposing force. Not always evil, but always in tension with the protagonist. Iago in Othello can be the master of manipulation and is a very good example for antagonist. Foil is a character who contrasts with the protagonist and it making their traits stand out. Another type we have confident. So confident is that trusted companion, like Horatio allows Hamlet to voice his inner thoughts. Along with that, we also have some minor character in a play. They may not drive the plot, but they enrich the world of drama. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are such example because they add texture and irony to the play. Next category or type we have allegorical characters, especially in morality plays. These characters represent abstract ideas like everyman or greed. Now, beyond their function, let's look at how characters are built and how complex or changeable they are. Let's understand them with these four types. The first one is a round character. So these characters are psychologically rich and multidimensional. They surprises us, they challenge us, and they always feel real. For example, Nora in Adol's house, she starts as a submissive wife, but we see her evolving into an independent woman. Another type we have dynamic characters. These characters change over as the time pass on. Avenger Scrooge, because he transferred from a miser to a generous soul, and there is a minor difference in a round and dynamic character. Most dynamic characters are round, but not all round characters are dynamic. For example, some critics see Hamlet as round but static because he is layered yet unchanged, while others argue that he evolves in his grasp of fate and morality. On the opposite side, we have flat character. These are those simple one note figures, and they usually serve a clear function but always lack depth. For example, the porter in Macbeth, he's just a comic relief, nothing more. Then we have static characters, and these characters who remain unchanged. Like Sherlock Holmes is a brilliant and consistent across all the stories, but we found him a static character. A flat and static character are not the same. Let me mention here. Because most flat characters are static, but not all static characters are flat. Because a character can be richly drawn, yet he or she remain unchanged, like we have taken the example of Sherlock Holmes. Finally, in the third category, we have some character which are shaped by tradition, or you can say the symbolic function. The first you can see that is stock characters. These are familiar types that we see across cultures in different types of drama, in theater, in films also. And these examples can be the Tyrant King, the Wise Fool, or the star-crossed lovers. Another we have is a symbolic character. These characters basically stand for the larger ideas. We can understand it with the example like in film Mother India. Radha, the main character, she isn't just a mother, but she represents sacrifice and national resilience. So what's the big picture here? Characters are not just people on stage. They are actually crafted tools very carefully for storytelling, and each type serve a unique purpose. These characters help us to feel, think, and even engage. Whether they are round or flat, symbolic or stock, they are the bridge between the stage and the audience. We don't just watch them, as in fact, we start to feel with them. Their dilemma becomes our, their victory inspire us, and their failure make us reflect on our own life. And I think that's the power of character in a drama. All right, we have talked about plot and characters. Now let's move to another essential element of drama, and that is dialogue. If we see plot as the skeleton and characters are the flesh, then dialogue is the voice of any drama, because drama is what brings the play to life. Think of any play without dialogue, it would be just silent gestures. So dialogue is how character express their thoughts, emotion, and even conflicts. It is not just words on a page. It is how these words are spoken, heard, and even felt. So dialogues are basically the heartbeat of drama. Why? Because it does three things at once. Let's understand. First, it reveals the psychology of any character. We came to know about the character through the dialogue. Also, it drives the plot forward. Dialogues help the plot to move forward. And finally, it engages the audience directly. Whenever a character speaks, we don't just receive the information, but actually we witness the action as well as the emotions. Also, when we look at dialogue across different tradition, we can see that how different culture have used it to shape a drama in unique ways. For example, we can see in classical Western drama, dialogues often take the form of soliloquies. And these are those long introspective speeches where a character share their inner world directly with the audience. And there is a difference always, whether it tragedy or comedy, dialogues are different. In tragedy, dialogues always carry that weight. They are serious, intense, and often poetic, because they help to reveal the inner struggle and moral dilemma of the tragic characters. For example, Hamlet's soliloquy is a perfect example. Here we see that language become philosophy, and it basically pulling us into the depth of suffering and fate of Hamlet. In contrast to tragedy, dialogues are light, witty, and playful in a comedy. Character use it to mock the social norms or create humorous misunderstanding. Let's see Much Ado About Nothing. There is just quick exchanges between Beatrice and Benedict, and the dialogues are full of clever that wordplay and flirtatious teasing. So following this, um, in modern era, dialogues shift towards realism. Like characters speak like we do in our daily life. Dialogues are interrupted, they are full of pauses and slangs. And this style makes the performance instantly relatable. In Waiting for Godot, we see that dialogue circles endlessly. Why? Because they reflect the absurdity of existence. Here, speech is not about advancing a plot, but it is about creating the atmosphere and provoking the thought. So, what does all this tell us? That dialogue is more than just conversation, it is a dramatic tool. It shapes the character and connect the audience to the emotional pulse of the play. Dialogue is the voice of drama, and without dialogue, I think the stage would be silent. So far we have seen that how plot gives drama its structure, and character give it life. But what really gives drama its depth? What is that? And that's where theme and conflict come in. They are what make a play more than just a sequence of event, because these theme and ideas, these thoughts give it the meaning and the emotion. So you can see that every drama has a theme, the central idea. Every drama explore a central theme or a basic idea. These themes can be philosophical, they can be moral, social, or even spiritual. So what are these themes? They are the big questions, and the question something like what is justice, what is love, what is freedom. So generally the theme would be something like love, separation, death, betrayal, or hope. Positively, all of them something like that. And themes are what stay with us long even after the curtain falls, because they invite reflection. We think about them. But do you think theme alone is enough? No. Alongside it, we need conflict. And conflict is basically the struggle that drive the plot forward. Without conflict, there is no drama. So this conflict actually creates the tension. It forces the character to make choices and keep the audience invested throughout the story, because it is the spark that ignites the whole story. And we can have different types of conflicts. Let's understand them. The first, we can have man versus man, like the external struggle between two different characters. Second can be man versus self, like internal struggle within a character. Like we have just seen Macbeth's battle with his own ambition, and his downfall come not from others, but from within. Another example of conflict is man versus society, in which a man usually struggles against social norms or injustice. And finally, we have man versus nature, where a character struggle against those natural forces. One thing is very important to mention here, that theme and conflict are not two separate entities, but they have to work together to make a drama excellent. Let's understand this with an example. In Oedipus Rex, the theme is fate versus free will, and the conflict lies in Oedipus' desperate attempt to escape destiny, which ironically leads him to straight into it. Another example we can take is Girish Karnad's Tughlaq, and here the theme is idealism versus political reality. So the conflict emerges as the visionary king's lofty dream clash with betrayal and harsh governance. So here we come to the conclusion that theme give us big idea, the universal question, and conflict give us the struggle, the tension, or you can say the human story. And together they form the intellectual and emotional core of any drama, because they transform play into more than just an entertainment. They make it a mirror of life. And in fact, these are the themes which prompt us to reflect on our own choices. What are our values, what are our struggle and choices? We start to reflect on all of them just because of theme. Next, we come to music and melody, the element Aristotle called melos. For him, melody is one of the 6 essential elements of a tragedy. If we look back to Greek theatre, it was the chorus that carried this element. We see that how chorus sang, danced, and through rhythm and harmony, they actually gave us the performance its emotional depth. So melody wasn't just decoration, but it reinforced the mood, and actually it guided the audience response. So whenever we think about music in a drama, it's clear that it does more than simply fill the silence. It's just not filling the silence alone. In fact, it sets the emotional atmosphere. It supports the narrative, because song can advance the plot. And in fact, music also express characters' inner feelings or conflict, as we have seen through those Bollywood songs. Above all, melody engages the audience directly and make the experience even more memorable and immersive. If we see examples across different tradition, we can understand it in better way. In Greek theatre, the chorus sang those odes that reflected on the action and blend poetry with music. In Indian classic theatre, Natya Shastra, music and rhythm were integral. You can see them rag and tal shaped emotional state rasa and ultimate that guided audience response. We can understand melody through Elizabethan theatre also. We have seen Shakespeare how he used songs in his famous play like Twelfth Night or Othello, and all these songs and melody help to deepen the mood or foreshadow the events. So music and melody is an important element of any drama because they move beyond words. They speak directly to the emotion and the rhythm of the story, and in this way melody actually transforms drama into a living and multisensory experience which stay with us for a long time. Now let's turn to the setting, basically the time and place in which a drama unfolds. As I already mentioned in the initial part of this session, that Aristotle didn't list a setting separately, but it is a distinct and important element in modern drama, and that's because of its powerful role in shaping mood and meaning of a play. At first glance, setting might seem like just the background or the scenery against which that action take place. But in reality, it is far more powerful. How? Because setting shapes the mood, atmosphere, and even the meaning of any play. It tells us where and when the story happens, but also how we should feel about it. You can think of setting as the silent partner of any drama. It doesn't speak, but it influences everything. The way a stage is arranged, the location chosen, or even the absence of scenery. All of these choices affect how the audience perceive the story. And just like dialogue or music, setting shifts its role depending on the kind of drama we are watching. Let's try to understand it with a different tradition. In Greek or Roman theatre, we see plays were performed in open air amphitheatre with thousands of spectators. So at that time, drama was actually a communal event. On the other hand, in Indian classical theatre, performances often held or took place in temple courtyards or in the royal courts. So this setting actually blend the sacred and the social settings. Here drama become actually the ritual, philosophy, and a culture reflection also. Following this, if we look back the Elizabethan theatre, stages were simple. If you read about the history, Elizabethan theatre were basically very simple, but story usually relied on the costumes and imagination. In Elizabethan theatre, a bare stage could transform into a battlefield, a palace, or forest through words alone, with that description. In the modern theatre, we found realistic sets like you have seen maybe the courtrooms, living rooms, railway station, which immerse audiences in their everyday life. In fact, making drama feel immediate and relatable. All these setting actually plays a very important role. In Waiting for Godot, if you notice the barren stage, a tree, a road, this emptiness actually become a kind of metaphor for existential futility. So you can see the setting itself reflect the emptiness of human waiting. So now we can understand that setting here is more than just background. Why? Because it actively shapes how we experience any play. Now let's turn to spectacle, which we actually call the visual and auditory dimension of any drama. Aristotle in his Poetics actually called spectacle the least artistic of all the dramatic elements. Why? Because it doesn't deal directly with ideas or language. But even Aristotle also admitted that it's an undeniable, powerful element. After all, theater, because it is just not only meant to be heard, but it is for to be seen and felt. So spectacle is everything that appeals to our senses, whether the costumes, makeup, music, set design, uh, lighting, so on and so forth. It contains all what makes drama vivid and immersive. In fact, spectacle heighten the emotion, and it actually pulling the audience deeper into the world of the play. One can easily misunderstood spectacle as technical elements in modern time, but let me clarify that here is the important distinction. Spectacle is actually the effect, while technical elements are the means which produce this effect. In Aristotle's time, a spectacle was simply the grand visuals and sound that dazzle the audience. In the modern theater, when we talk about technical element, we actually talk those behind the scene crafts that actually create this spectacle. So let's understand. Spectacle is what the audience experiences. For example, the thunderstorm in Macbeth or the haunting silence in Waiting for Godot. On the other hand, technical elements are the tools that make those experiences possible, whether the lighting and the sound system, or the costume, or the props. So we can see that spectacle is the effect, the magic we see, while technical elements are that craft, the tools that make that magic possible. So we are done with all the elements here. Now let's take a recap what we have seen in today's session. So we traced the literary elements of drama and explored that how plot, character, dialogue, theme, conflict, music, spectacle and setting, and how each element contribute to the power of performance. We understood that these elements actually provide the structure, they create human connection, convey ideas, and ultimately offer that aesthetic vision. We understood all these elements through different examples across different traditions. So as you reflect, remember one thing. Literary elements are the skeleton and soul of any drama, and it is very important. In our next lecture, we'll move beyond the written page to explore the technical and performance elements. See you in the next lecture. Thank you so much.